So, you ever use Twitter? I don't need to introduce this, right? You know what this is about. You've seen this show in some capacity. You know Hell of a Boss and Hazbin Hotel. They've been damn near inescapable for over a year. And why is that? Mostly because people keep trying to stab each other over this show. The hate and malice coming from the people who haven't seen it and judge it from afar, and the support coming from people who have seen it is a constant battleground. So as a self-approved martyr, I say I'll settle this debate. Myself, a hater of the show, will go in with an open mind and honestly try and give this show a shot. I will only be looking at Hazbin Hotel for this video. If Hell of a Boss is any good and I end up liking this, I might check it out. But that's not important. This show is. Let's see if I was too harsh on this show all this time and it was just another case of internet stigma making me hate something baselessly. Hey there, so this is where the video was supposed to start, but I wanted to add two things to get out of the way, and both of those relate to the contents of this video. For starters, there is no way this video is getting monetized. Yeah, this video tackles some pretty heavy stuff at parts. So if you want to support me, since I'm not going to see jack shit from this video, you can subscribe, or alternatively, my channel now has memberships. These videos cost an increasing amount of money with every impulse purchase for every WarioWare game, so if you want to support me in the stuff I create, consider joining. And also, the less fun stuff is a trigger warning for this video. If the topic of SA makes you uncomfortable, then you might want to skip this one. Go watch any of my other videos that are marginally more fun. Sorry to interrupt, back to whatever I was saying. I already hate it. We'll be going episode by episode since there's only 8 of them in the first season. I love the modern day animation industry. Starting off with episode 1, Overture. We start with a fairy tale giving the basic plot setup of what's going on. It's a basic story of Adam and Eve, but altered just a tiny bit. It's now Adam and Lilith is a bit more of a free spirit, who the dejected and disgruntled Lucifer falls in love with, which causes all of the evils in the world to manifest into a physical location known as Hell, where all of the other angels banish Lucifer and Lilith to so they can maintain a pure earth. Lucifer got all sad and mopey about it, while Lilith took pride in what they had and tried to turn it into a home, which is kind of hard to do when every year swabs of angels come down to Hell and purge. This is just to keep down the overpopulation, since there's bound to be plenty of plucky people ending up in this petrifying purgatory. So that's our setup, all read off by Charlie here, who shall be our main character for the evening. Everybody in Hell is kind of glum about the eternal damnation to Hell, except Charlie, who always keeps in high spirit. Of course, brought down a little by her dearest girlfriend Vaggie. Not the part of the script to talk about this, but absolutely horrible name. Charlie's kept up in here reading the book her mom gave her, Lilith, while she's trying to ignore the genocide outside. But fates turn in her favor when she gets a call from her dad saying the angels want to meet formally and discuss her plans of redeeming the lost souls in this place she calls her Hazbin Hotel. It's just like the title of the show! The first episode from there is the colorful cast that make up the staff of the hotel trying to film a suitable commercial, while Charlie speaks with the angel known as Adam. But who cares about politics when I could be introducing these wonderful characters? These wonderful characters. I've already spoken about Charlie and her constant optimism in literal hell, but what about all of her funny little friends? First off, Vaggie, who's her girlfriend, which I guess makes her honorary second in command. Her job is to be a pseudo-protector for the hotel from people who keep trying to blow it up, as well as straight man of the group, trying to guide all of the others along like cats. She's fine, I guess. I feel very neutral about her character. Husk is a barkeep whose most standout trait is being voiced by Kenneth David of all people. You might know him as Flame King from Adventure Time, or the main protagonist from Princess and the Frog. How on earth did they get him for this? And that ends all the characters from episode 1 that I enjoyed. Okay, Alistair. He's the radio demon as they call him, and he just kind of annoys me. I like his voice. They make it sound like an old scratchy radio voice, but that's where my enjoyment of the character ends. I'll get more into why I don't like him later, but just you wait. There's their maid I forget the name of. Okay, fine, I'll talk about him. Angel Dust is the worst character who has ever graced TV. There's not a single likable quality I can pick out from him. He is a moldy mess of a character. He's currently the only guest staying at the Hazbin Hotel, and he is a former, I can't say that on YouTube, homosexual filmmaker. Sure. That is his only character trait. Every time he's near different characters, he just keeps trying to have sex with them. It's not enjoyable or well written in the slightest. His only addition to any scene is just gay penis lol. A character that's the helm of a one-time gag? Sure. Maybe a character like this could appear in a sizzle reel of different people staying at the hotel. Someone who's just a coomer would definitely seek redemption, but not as a main character. This isn't somebody I can get attached to because there is nothing to attach to. He's so one note in nothing, but I can't help but groan every time he's on on screen. His only character trait is just intercourse, am I correct? Which could have been funny if this is just one joke he had, but this is the only joke they make with him in the 20 minutes of runtime this first episode has. Absolutely useless character. He could have been replaced by a cardboard box and still had the same purpose. So those are all the characters from episode 1, and if we don't include most of them, I liked all of them. Okay, that's enough being a negative Nancy for right now. Let's finish up this episode and actually talk about things I really enjoyed from it. Charlie speaks with Adam about redeeming the souls and letting them into heaven, and also maybe cooling it with the death raids they keep doing, which prompts Adam to say, no, how about we do it again in 6 months instead of a year? And also, what if I sang a banger song about how evil I am? Here's something I actually love about this series thus far. The music and songs are genuinely great. Hell is Forever and Happy Day in Hell, which is a song that gets sung by Charlie earlier in the episode, are such earworms. This show is half stupid f***ing garbage and half musical, you know? And I'm not just talking about the songs from this episode either. Later songs from the series like Respectless, Whatever It Takes, Hell's Greatest Dad, are all just amazing songs, disconnecting it from the series. Couple that with the gorgeous animation and visuals during these segments, and this is the best part of the show for me, honestly. The music is just sublime. Okay, so if my favorite part is the music, then my favorite part is when I'm not looking at it. Awesome. The word breaks through the news that they're moving the Purge forward half a year, and chaos breaks out through hell because of this news. And the episode is over. So that's episode 1, and what a way to start. So far, it's honestly not that great. I like Charlie and Vaggie, but every other character here either annoys me or is just downright unpleasant to be around. But hey, you can't judge a show from the first episode. Things are bound to pick up in episode 2. Radio killed the video star. This introduces some real antagonists for the show. Vox, Valentino, and some other lady I forgot the name of. And, oh my god, this might just be some of the worst writing I've seen come out of a villain's lips. Okay, so this is something that's unavoidable, and I might as well just bring it up early on to get it over with. The writing in the show is bad. I can't think of any other way to put it. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, I can! The best way I can describe Hazbin Hotel and its writing is with chicken. A chicken breast at its base is a culinary canvas in which a chef can paint their own vision upon. A chicken, in this example, is a sentence. All of the different ways you can say and do things with a sentence is its seasoning. The closest you're getting to just a basic chicken that's unseasoned is just informational text, like a documentary or something. Nothing wrong with a basic chicken breast, but it's a basic chicken breast at the end of the day. But there's so much you can do with a piece of chicken. That's where salt gets introduced. Salt in this example is swearing. Every swear word a sentence has is just a little extra crank of salt. But how should you use salt, or swearing, I guess? Well, you can't just use it willy-nilly in any dish. Obviously, salt is only going to taste good in dishes that are already savory, so it doesn't pair great with, like, cereal. The same goes with swear words. Swearing is shocking, emotional, and funny. Those are 3 basic ways you can use swearing in a sentence. So a character overreacting to something, somebody getting really mad and frustrated, somebody getting shocked or startled, or somebody pounding their fists into the ground experiencing some kind of hardship. Those are great points to put a couple swear words in. In those instances, adding some swearing salt to your sentence chicken is a great idea. But you see, that's a great thing about salt. It can definitely make chicken taste better, but it depends on what type of chicken you're making. Salt, as I said earlier, doesn't taste good in every dish. So depending on what type of chicken you're making or sentence you're constructing, swearing isn't really necessary. Let's say you're having a character trying to announce themselves as a threat. Swearing will make them sound far too silly to take seriously, and will make that point come across poorly. So adding a few swear words to a sentence where somebody is trying to be imposing isn't a good idea. So when we're introduced to characters Vox and Valentino, they sound more like children in COD lobbies when they start swearing. The show plays these 2 guys up as major threats, so when they start swearing, they sound like little children and makes them less threatening. Now you might be wondering why I choose to use salt as an example when any other seasoning could also work. Well, that's the fun thing with salt. You add too much and it completely ruins a dish. No one's eating anything that's too salty, and the same thing goes with scenes and sentences that have too much swearing. Episode 2 of Hazbin Hotel has 26 F-bombs. That's just the F word, by the way, not even factoring in any other swears. That is a little over 1 F-bomb per minute. Now, swearing this much in any form of media isn't the end of the world. As any self-respecting Hazbin Hotel fan has wasted no time showing you, this image here displays that The Wolf of Wall Street has more swearing in it as a whole. So why is The Wolf of Wall Street considered a masterpiece when it comes to its writing, and this isn't? And that's the fun thing about salt. Like I've said, you can't use it everywhere. Like I was saying earlier with those examples I rattle off of where swearing should and shouldn't be used. Now, I haven't seen The Wolf of Wall Street and frankly don't want to, so I'm using a different example. Red vs. Blue is chock full of swear words. But why is it okay when that show does it? That's because of who is swearing. The Reds and Blues are incredibly immature and untrained, so them reacting to everything with a few oh shits is to be expected. But somebody who wants to be a threat like Vox shouldn't have have that. They put too much salt in and it ruined my chicken. When you're announcing to the audience of how bad you are, it should be pretty low sodium. That's not to say every villain needs to be threatening. Off the top of my head, Hades from Hercules is an incredibly goofy character, while also being the main antagonist. Lord Hater from Wander Over Yonder is more of a joke than actual threat, but that's the difference between Hazbin Hotel and Wander Over Yonder. Wander Over Yonder is like good and stuff. In the first episode of Wander Over Yonder, Hater immediately establishes himself as a threat by overthrowing an entire planet's government in a matter of minutes, but brings him back down to Earth when he gets his ego challenged by Wander and immediately becomes a joke. Both Hater and Vox have a setup where they could come off as jokes from the start, but Hazbin Hotel doesn't have that payoff where they become jokes. All of the swearing they do is just an attempt at making them sound intimidating, but it fails because that's not how you use swearing. You are putting salt in the cereal! Now, that's not to say a villain swearing is a bad thing. To use the low-hanging fruit of video essay creators everywhere, Breaking Bad does the exact same thing often. Tuco Salamanca is the main antagonist from season 1 and cusses constantly. But that's the difference between Tuco and Vox. Vox and Valentino, when they get introduced, are alone up in their penthouse. This is their introduction, and introducing a villain comes with a certain expectation, like making them threatening. But both them and Tuco swear all of the time. Why is it wrong when they do it? Well, that's the thing. When Tuco is on screen, he's always with other people that have to respect him. Other people who, without saying it, are already scared of him because he is a threat. He doesn't have to say or prove anything to the audience. The people around him and how they interact with him already do. So when he starts swearing, it's less so him trying to be intimidating and more so him being completely unhinged. Like he could snap at any moment and shoot somebody. Vox and Valentino don't have that at all. They're the only characters in the room, so it's up to them and their dialogue to prove that they're a threat and should be respected. It feels like a similar thing they were trying to do with Adam, but here's the difference. Adam says the f word just as much, if not more, but he doesn't have to put on the face of being a threat. It's because he's already won. The start of the episode is him and all of the other angels massacring the residents of Hell. He has nothing to prove that the narrative hasn't already proven. He's not trying to be big and bombastic, he's more of a frat boy with a god complex. So him being extremely childish is a good thing because that's just who he is. He is basically Tuco with wings. To compare both of them again, they both have villain songs. Adam and Vox, not Tuco. I've already said how Adam is my favorite so far, so how does Vox stack up? It doesn't. He is the folly to Alistair, right? Well, at least that's what the show wants him to be because he barely lives up to that. In his villain song, he talks about how radio is outdated and TV is so much better than Alistair and his stinky radio. But in the middle of the song, Alistair butts in and starts having a little battle with him over the airwaves. And this is the point where Vox is shown as a real threat by showing how much more powerful he is than Alistair, and also sets up how this is going to be the crux of Alistair's story, trying to become better than and eventually defeat Vox. The only part I left out of that explanation is that I'm a f***ing liar. Vox glitches out and loses to Alistair at the end of his own villain song. A villain song is supposed to make them imposing and larger than life. It's supposed to make them seem threatening. Could you imagine at the end of Mother Knows Best from Tangle, Mother Gossel just got like shot or something? That would not make her threatening, would it? Or if Savages from Pocahontas ended with the colonizers, I don't know, throwing a f***ing picnic. You can't have an antagonist lose at the end of their own song. But wait a minute, back up Gazpacho 1. Lord Hater and Vox both try setting themselves up as huge threats, then get knocked down a peg by one of the protagonists. It's a little hypocritical to say Hazbin Hotel doing the same thing is wrong, isn't it? And I would respond with, why are you talking at a YouTube video? What separates Lord Hater and Vox is that Hater sets himself up as a threat successfully. Vox can never achieve that because he never acts like one. Unlike Lord Hater, who does, so him getting brought back down to Earth is satisfying. In conclusion, he fails at being set up as a threat, fails at acting threatening, fails at proving why he should be here in the first place, and fails at being a likable character outside of those aspects. Anyway, yeah, that's why Vox is a sucky bad guy. So far, I have spent half of the video talking about chicken and one character. One final jab, Alistair's design at the end of the song looks stupid. Okay, I'm done, I swear. Let's go back to some positives for now. Like something that I actually really enjoyed about Vox. His design isn't half bad. I think this TV head thing looks pretty cool. As well as a little top hat thing having a Wi-Fi symbol on it. In addition, I like how sometimes when he's talking, he'll have a laugh track or applause come from him. It actually ties into him having a TV for a face with how he acts and talks. So it's like the one character that does this. That's awesome. Right, sorry, positives. This episode introduces the best character, Sir Pentious. He's a cartoonishly evil steampunker snake guy, and I just can't help but love him. He starts off by attacking the hotel, because he wants to kill Alistair, and after immediately getting defeated is sent back by his boss Vox. They're trying to spy on Alistair for whatever reason, and they make him pose as somebody who's coming to seek help from the hotel. It doesn't go great because he's immediately found out and nearly killed, but luckily they forgive him. He's so pathetic and stupid sounding that it just makes him the best character. He's got all of these dumb little eggs that he's got to follow him around too. Him rarely swearing and just being overall a really shit villain just makes him perfect. So this episode introduces a purposely bad villain, unintentionally bad villain, and Valentino. What's his purpose? Well, he's made to oppose Angel Dust. I just remembered, I don't care. Apparently he used to be the sugar daddy for Angel Dust, and it's like, wow, okay, so Angel Dust is feeling all glum that Serpentius is getting all of the attention while he's also trying to recover. That's great and all, maybe he's getting the attention because he's a likable character. Maybe if your design was any better, people would actually like you. That's one other problem I have to show. The character design. Nope! Gotta save that one for later. Episode 3, Scrambled Eggs. All of the people at the hotel do trust exercises while Alistair takes care of some errands. While he's out, he's also tasked with getting rid of Serpentius' egg henchmen. First, the B-plot, since it's way more interesting. Alistair's meeting with a bunch of buddies about if they should have a revolt against Heaven, because the leader of their little group was able to kill an angel during the last purge, something no other demon has achieved. At least Alistair's the only person who knows this info. They try and keep it a secret, but one of the egg guys spies on her talking alone with Green and Gangly over here. They even have a pretty good musical number I brought up earlier called Respectless. It's quite catchy and it orchestrates the point of this one lady I'm still not looking up the name of. She's proposing they go to war because we can clearly kill them, as Camilla, the leader of their little group, advocates for not starting a war just yet because they're not sure everybody can handle one. At least that's what she says. In actuality, the reason Camilla isn't ready for wars because she's worried she'll lose everybody she loves, which pairs greatly with what's been going on with Vaggie in the A-plot. She's scared she's going to lose Charlie at some point because she's the only one who knows how to fight a part of their little group. Worried she'll lose Charlie during the next extermination. This duet between them as they both sing about their goals is just so good, man. I cannot stress how good the music in the show is. The rest of the writing, on the other hand? Yeah, okay, I think it's time we talk about the rest of the writing. I've already talked far too much about how swearing works and how it should and shouldn't be used, but what about the other facets of writing? Humor, mood, tone, and all that? How does it do? Well, for starters, it doesn't. This might be one of the least funny shows I have ever watched. Oh my god. When they're doing trust exercises, Angel Dust says he has an idea for what they could do and then just takes them to a BDSM chamber. You see, the joke is sex. This was the part in the show where I literally slouched over in my chair, buried my face in my hands, and waited for it to end. This wasn't funny. This didn't move the plot along. This didn't give me a new look at any of the other characters. This was just another poor attempt at telling a joke. But it didn't work because it's the same joke they've been telling with Angel Dust this entire season so far. He's such a one-note character that he immediately cannibalizes any joy a scene with him could have. Like, they're doing trust falls and they all say something about themselves before falling backwards, right? Charlie talks about how much she loves everybody. Serpentius talks about how he doesn't want to live anymore without his minions and just tells them not to catch him. And stupid-ass Angel Dust comes up on stage, and I'm just gonna tell you word for word what he says here. He says, "I love sucking," and then gets cut off by Husk telling him to not say dicks, in which he responds with saying lollipops, and to get his mind out of the gutter, in which he then falls and says, "Yeah, dicks too." Now, I want you, yes, the audience watching this, to tell me what the joke was. Go on, say it out loud. You can do it. The joke is sex! Every joke is sex! That's what every punchline in this show is! It's impossible to care about anything revolving Angel Dust because of how nothing his character truly is. He really just doesn't have any personality. Charlie is kind and sweet and forgiving. Vaggie is cold, hardened, and brutal. Serpentius is silly and pathetic and sentimental. Angel Dust has nothing. I'm sorry to keep constantly ragging on him, but when he's in almost every scene, and when every single joke in the show revolves around him, I can't not talk about him constantly. This guy, episode 4, Masquerade. So this episode has Husk and Angel Dust as our main protagonists. This episode kind of started as my least favorite of the series, and honestly, watching through this, I kind of was just willing to write off this whole video and just do something else, but as it went on, it kind of started to win me over. It serves to explain and explore Angel Dust's character. Throughout the entire season so far, Angel Dust keeps trying to get with Husk, who has very non-reciprocated feelings, which gets stressed when Husk starts flawlessly dissecting all of their flaws, like how Charlie wants to fix everybody else but not herself, and that Angel Dust is just words I can't say on YouTube, until Angel Angel gets a call from his boss Valentino for a shoot. Use context clues and decipher what they are filming. Yeah, so turns out Angel Dust is kind of, sort of, maybe sold his soul to that Valentino guy, and he's been using him this entire time. So yes, Valentino is another word I cannot say on YouTube. I'm just gonna dance around it and say he has forceful fun with him and try to move on as quickly and as tastefully as possible. Off script for a second, but this scene where Valentino is revealing to the audience everything he's been doing to Angel, like, it's so good, and like, he becomes so much bigger of a threat because of this, because he proves how threatening he is. Yeah, that's right, f you, Vox. After this revelation to the audience and Charlie messing up everything on set trying to help out Angel Dust, we get genuinely one of the best songs in the show. The song Poison is about Angel Dust's struggles with being forced into this line of work he has, but that he's basically addicted to this self-destructive business he does, using the metaphor that he can't get enough of drinking poison. That's a really cool way to take his character and a phenomenal musical number. But that just leads me to question why he acts like this at all. I honestly would have liked it if he was really super reserved and that this episode was revealing everything he does. Yes, there would have been hints towards this episode with all of the posters in the background advertising him, but this would have been the episode where the show really lifts the mask off. And I just want to add something here I thought about while editing. When I say stuff like, this scene is really good, when the most horrendous shit possible is going on, I don't mean I enjoy the actions taking place. I mean I like the scene and what story they're trying to craft. The struggle with Angel Dust's character is a very heavy one, and what better show to tackle a topic like this than one set inside of hell? And what worse writer to tackle a topic like this than Vivian Madrino? Alright, this is why there was a trigger warning earlier. Look, I'm not a victim myself, thankfully, but I have known and still know people who are. So I could honestly see how the show handles such a heavy topic to be extremely disrespectful to people who have had the same life experience. Him trying to convince himself he likes this while having an extremely self-destructive existence is a great idea for a character in concept, but it comes off as disgusting when it's her writing it. You know why? I make a joke about this later, so please just try to laugh when it comes up. And just forget I added this a little bit, but VisiPop literally quotes an NSFW assault comic during the scene with Angel Dust and Valentino. I don't think she was being entirely sincere with this character in my eyes, considering I don't think anybody who was trying to tell a genuine story of an abuse survivor would quote a fucking fetish comic. Yes, it was a comic based off of her characters, but I don't really think that changes anything. This is beyond disturbing. And despite a jab here and there, I try to separate the art from the artist for a lot of this video. So if I say I like some stuff about it, try not to take it as a compliment towards Vivian Madrino herself. She is one of the worst people in the indie animation space. Sorry to get really heavy there, but I felt like it needed to be said. Kind of forgot what we were talking about to begin with here. After he gets back to the hotel, he goes to Husk for a drink, which doesn't go so great, so he leaves and Husk is forced to go after him, in which he finds him in a bar fight breaks out, another phenomenal piece of music plays, Angel Dust somehow grows 2 more limbs, and they go home with a newfound understanding for each other. I understand that's a really rundown version of the plot, but I wanted to get through it so I can talk about it more in retrospect. I actually really enjoyed this episode. Still doesn't make me like Angel Dust. Yeah, I can sympathize with his character now, but it doesn't mean I like him. I understand why Axe Murderer Jim axe murdered all of those people, but doesn't make me like him. I just feel his character would have been better if we basically knew nothing about him up until this point, and he was more of just a standoffish kind of guy. More ashamed of who he was. Because they basically say that in this episode. Angel says that drugs and naughty naughties is an outlet for him to escape his horrible life, which would have been cool if we hadn't already had 3 episodes to build up a grudge against this guy. This being the midpoint of the season is good, but I feel like if the last 3 episodes were spent dangling a mystery over our heads of who this guy is really about, it would have worked much better. We would obviously get snippets about what this guy's deal is, like in episode 2 when Angel Dust is going through all of his voicemails that Valentino has left him. So then in episode 4, when everything's revealed, it can really hit you in the gut when it proves all of your suspicions to be true. Have people refer to him with the status he has, but then just kind of have him nonchalantly ignore it. He just feels like such a waste of a character how he is. And it sucks because I can see through the little cracks of how much better he could have been handled, but they completely fumbled it in the delivery. At least Husk is pretty cool. This is the first episode that really dives into him as well, and I like him a lot. Apparently, he used to hit it big at casinos until his luck dried up and he made a deal with Alistair that went south. So they can both sympathize with one another about being on a demon's leash, and sing one of the most iconic songs from the show about it. Loser Baby. You've heard this one. Don't try and hide it. You've heard it, okay? Yeah, it's good. What do you want me to say? The visuals look spectacular. The message is really nice about them both deciding they can be losers together. But if you've heard any song from the show, it's this one, and for good reason. So So allow me to be a contrarian and say that the song is really good, but not the best. Look, I think it gets really heavily carried by Keith David having the voice of an angel. Like, if you look at the lyrics they're saying in the first half of it, it's just kind of annoying. Also, at the end of the song, they tell the first joke I thought was actually funny. The gang that was inside of the bar that Husk beat up meets them outside and just complains that they've been singing this whole time. That was funny, and I'm so happy that the first joke I laughed at was in the 4th episode. That was sarcasm. Also, during this, Angel Dust gains an extra pair of arms from nowhere. I don't really know how that happened. I'm guessing it was an animation error. Hold up, what even is Angel Dust? Let me look it up. What the fuck? Look at him. You mean to tell me that's supposed to be a spider? Okay, I've been waiting with bated breath to talk about this one. It's finally time we tackle the character designs. Holy shit, they are so bad. First, however, I need to explain what separates a good character design from a bad one. Describing what a good character design looks like is a little tricky. Loads of stuff has to go into it. Colors, shapes, silhouetting, facial expression, simplicity, purpose. Everything has to be considered when you're designing a character. What do I mean by purpose? You wouldn't make a character who's supposed to look like a good guy look all mean and threatening, would you? That's just counterintuitive. Usually, the friendlier looking characters are the ones the audience is supposed to attach to. They're typically rounder, have a lot of popping colors. Here's a good example for you. Mickey Mouse. As much as I hate to admit it, this is a perfect character design. He's obviously a well-mannered and likable character, so he's more rounded off. His red and yellow and white all pop from the rest of his black body. He can emote in pretty much any way the animators need him to. He's as simple as 2 circles on a slightly larger circle can be. And don't tell me you don't recognize this dude from his silhouette alone. Mickey is an amazing character design. Now that is how you design somebody who's supposed to be likable. Now, how about a villain? Let me use Wander Over Yonder again because I just like that show, okay? Lord Dominator compared to Wander is practically night and day. Wander is rounder, a friendlier shade of orange and green. Dominator, on the other hand, has a lot of sharp and jagged edges, is comparatively larger, has a mask hiding all form of expression, and not to mention that beautiful detail of her chest vaguely resembling her symbol, being a heart that's slightly melting, or I guess bleeding. Dominator is an example of another great character design, just like my chicken breast from earlier. So, now that you know 2 examples of what makes good characters, let's see how Hazbin Hotel gets all of it wrong. Here's Husk. He looks disgusting. Let me quickly describe everything going on with Mickey Mouse's character design, okay? He's got 2 ears that then connect to the rest of his head seamlessly since all of it's the same shade of black, leading down to his little button nose and eyes, with his head seamlessly connecting to the rest of his body using the same shade of black technique leading to his ginormous shorts, big white gloves, big old yellow shoes. It's simple but effective, just like any good character design should be. Husk has wings that are black and red on the inside while being red and black on the out. When they're extended, they kind of resemble a poker table, tying into the gambler aesthetic. A little top hat with a little red ring around it, and then a yellow seal. Giant eyebrows that have a black stripe on them. Big old cat ears that have red and white on the inside with little hearts. Even smaller black hearts for his nose and insignias over his eyebrows. Hair tufts going off to the side of his face. Constantly tired looking eyes with pointy teeth. A red bow tie that's then connected into suspenders holding up his pants, which also has a tail that has some kind of red, white, and black on it. And ending off with sleeves that also have yellow hearts on the palms. This design is a mess. This has far too much stuff going on it for its own good. If I silhouette him, you just have a bunch of random shit. Baggy has this problem, Charlie has this problem, Alistair has this problem up to 11. Literally, if I was to fix Husk's design, I would start by removing those wings and most of my problems are already gone. I think my least favorite one though has got to be Angel Dust. Did you know he's supposed to be a spider? I didn't. Does anything about him look like he's a spider? He doesn't even have 8 limbs. One of his eyes is black for some reason. He has a golden tooth. He's way 2 legs. Nothing about him says he's a spider. If I, somebody who has never designed a character, were to redesign him, I would probably start by giving him actual spider qualities. Give him 2 extra legs and have both of them bend instead of him towering over everybody. Actually give him the abdomen that real spiders have. Just those 2 changes alone would have given the point across that he is a spider. Or move in the opposite direction away from the spider thing. Because I noticed at several points in the show that the animators were practically choking to death trying to animate all of this guy's limbs. While I was editing the 4th episode, I made the realization about why character designs should stay simple. I can only imagine how hard it must have been animating Angel Dust and all of his 6 limbs, which is not only why they make him have his 4th set be detractable, just so they wouldn't have to animate 8 limbs at once, but also when I was watching the Loser Baby segment closer, they decided to remove one of his sets of arms during one of the shots. Like, they're not just tucked in or something, they're just gone! Never let her design a character again. Oh my god. How about Charlie? Did you know she's supposed to be a fucking goat. Nothing about her is goat-like. When she's pissed, she gets horns, which is nice and all, but I would have started by not only giving her a snout like a real goat, but also giving her little horns that pop out of her hair, so you can tell, even slightly, what she's supposed to be. I mean, from a side view, she kind of has a snout with this little nose thing, but from the front, that doesn't come across at all. It just looks like her face is flat. She doesn't look like a goat. She looks more clown to me right now. And that's not just me ribbing her design. She genuinely looks like a clown. She's all white with these little red dots at the ends of her mouth. She just looks like a clown, and nothing about this is goat-like. Hey, interjecting after I finish the series, but also finish wanting to add more to this script. Most good character designs accentuate what the character is supposed to do, or at least one of their traits, through their design. If I showed you the character Manly Dan from Gravity Falls and asked you what his personality was, you could probably figure it out pretty fast from just that name and build alone. Or if I showed you Scrooge McDuck with his constantly determined expression, top hat, and spats, you could probably figure out at least something about what this guy is about. At least that he's somewhere upper class based off the cane and top hat alone. For a more in-depth example of good character design in this aspect, let's look at Thimble Theater. Right, none of you know what that means. I mean Popeye. Specifically Popeye and Bluto. They're both rivals and have amazing designs. From just looking at Popeye, his near constant snarl and buff as hell arms, you can tell he's probably not the most gentlemanly. While Bluto, on the other hand, opposed to Popeye being relatively skinny, is huge. And mixed together his smile with his size, you can tell he's an obvious foil to Popeye. But with that out of the way, what does Angel Dust do for you? What does his character design tell you anything about what he's supposed to be? Any trait or ability he has doesn't come across visually, which leads to him looking basically like nothing. Same with Alistair, but I'm still mad at Angel Dust. Now, I will give the show credit where credit is due. That's not every character. I think one of the best character designs from the entire season is Camilla Carmichael. She was that one lady from episode 3 I didn't give much attention to. She's tall and thin like literally every other character in the show, but she's actually got a justifiable reason for being that way. In the very first thing you see of her, you're shown her spiked ballet shoes, and in a later episode, it's revealed that her spiked shoes and long legs is how she fights people. So her having really long legs makes perfect sense, since that's a big part of her character. I would have just loved it if every character was like that. Faggy's the only one that even comes close. Her resting grump face as well as having her constant uptight posture gives her a sense of strictness, as well as her having a short fuse, which is undeniable about her. Then she's got a whole bunch of other bullshit that doesn't really make any sense and kind of falls apart. And sorry to keep digging on Husk here, but to add on to that point about purpose, did you know Husk never flies at all in the series? I'm sorry, why does he have wings? You shouldn't give a character something that's a big part of their character design if they don't use it. The worst character design in the whole show, without a doubt, though, is Alistair. Look at him. Just take it all in. I can describe to you why it's bad, but do I need to? You already know it looks bad. I don't have to add anything to this. He's so skinny, he looks like he's about to disappear. Yeah, that's another problem with the character designs a lot of people have. All of these guys look like goddamn stick figures. And unfortunately, I'm kind of inclined to agree. All of them just look anorexic. A vast majority of the characters share this same trope of long ass legs, skinny little waists, slightly large chests with some gangly ass arms, and then pointy faces. Yeah, let's pin that one there too. Every character in the show has nearly identical faces. Look at all of these mouths. They all have pointy teeth and triangle face holes. And Alistair is obviously the worst example of this. Just look at him, dude. He's all mouth. I mentioned earlier the animation in the show looks great, and I stand behind that. I just don't think the characters they're animating look good at all. I feel so bad for the people who had to draw this. Trying to make sure every little detail of every character was there while drawing out scribbles of a mad woman must have taken forever. Hey, did you know during that scene when Angel Dust is having unconsensual fun with Valentino, Vivian Madrino went out of her way to quote an essay NSFW comic? Hey, did you know Vivian Madrino is an awful person? Okay, let's keep this train moving a bit. Episode 5, Deadbeat Dad. This episode confuses me. Charlie is trying to find a way to make more people come to her hotel. When Vaggie pitches, she just call her dad for a favor, since Lucifer is technically an angel and heaven adjacent. He could get a meeting like, hey, could you stop killing us, made. But she barely talks to her father and is hesitant to do so. So the whole episode is them trying to connect with each other, while Alistair, who kind of had a father relationship with her, makes this bit awkward. But here's what makes me pause with this episode. They don't tell any sex jokes. In fact, the jokes they do tell I actually liked. Not all of them hit, like Lucifer making a bunch of rubber ducks didn't really do anything for me. But this one part where Charlie is introducing him to Alistair and he gets a little too close to Charlie, prompting Lucifer to think she's dating this giant red guy, but then immediately after that she introduces him to her girlfriend, in which he says, oh, you're into girls, I am too, we have so much in common. Like, that was funny. Where the hell was that writing from the last 4 episodes? I don't even remember them swearing that much here. The writing between Charlie and her dad here is pretty good too, and they're makeup at the end where he realizes how much of her life he hasn't been in was really sweet. Did they lock Vizzy Pop in a janitor's closet for this episode? Why was it suddenly good? I enjoyed this episode. There wasn't any points where I groaned or put my head down in shame of what I was watching. Episode 5 was just flat out good, ignoring everything else in the show. Even though it's not about him, Angel Dust has a few lines in here and he doesn't make any sex jokes. I'm pretty sure he only made one, and that was when he was introduced, but I'll ignore it because of everything else. The 2 musical numbers were also great. The little rivalry going on between Lucifer and Alistair was really charming, and Lucifer's design is actually pretty good. I like the detail of his hat having a little snake coil around it with an apple, as a reference to the actual story of Adam and Eve. Where the hell was all of this the last half of the season? I never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but I actually enjoyed this part of Hazbin Hotel. Still doesn't make me like Alistair and his whole radio demon stuff. It's cringy as hell. Anytime he gets upset, it always looks like a 12-year-old would draw this on DeviantArt. It's so pretentious. Dude, you thought his regular design was bad. Whenever he gets upset, his little eyes turn to radio dials, and I can't help but just recoil in my seat. They're trying way too hard with this design. It passes the point of being scary to loop around and look completely hilarious. Ignoring Alistair's stupid ass, I'm turning evil looking design, this episode is great. Lucifer says he'll see what he can do with the whole getting them to speak with the angels in heaven thing, and then the episode ends. Oh yeah, the person who voiced Spinel was here. That was cool. Oh, Jesus Christ, that was being too positive. I need to start whining again. Where the hell was Vox? I spent like 10 pages talking about that shitler. Where the hell did you put him? That's another problem I have with the show. The world doesn't really feel alive. Vox is a huge figure who apparently has a massive, widespread influence, but after he was seen literally once, there's been barely any reference to him ever made again. Even in the episode where his friend Valentino shows up and has a huge spotlight, there's like no mention to him made. Yeah, he's there for like half a second just to remind you he exists, and there's posters in the background advertising his existence, but that doesn't count as world building, you know. The world of Hazbin Hotel just doesn't feel alive. The farthest we ever see outside of the hotel is just a few buildings here and there. Then there's this wide shot of the city during Vox's villain song. Furthermore, I don't really think a lot of these people should be in hell. What the hell did Angel Dust do to get down here? Or Husk? Or hell, even Serpentius. What the hell is wrong with him? I can imagine some of these people just kind of materialized one day, like Alistair, but I don't really think a lot of them feel evil enough to be in hell. If I was in charge of the world building and making characters of the show, I'd have a bunch of, I can't say the word, but you know the people who follow that mustache guy? Running all around the place. Well, gee, Gaspacho 1, what do you like about the show? I'll tell you. Episode 6, Welcome to Heaven. I mentioned episode 5 was strangely good, and somehow that carries over to episode 6? Is this show becoming good? This episode is a courtroom trial between Charlie and Vaggie versus the angels in Heaven's Court. To prove that souls can change, Charlie keeps using Angel Dust as an example. Him and everybody else from the hotel, as well as his friend Cherry Bomb, are all out clubbing. Charlie's fighting for the idea that souls can be redeemed and brought into heaven. Just because somebody did something horrible in their past doesn't mean they can't become good people in the future. And how the show exercises that is between 2 characters, Angel Dust and Vaggie. It's revealed here that Vaggie used to be an angel tasked with carrying out the extermination, but felt empathy towards a kid and spared them, which makes me wonder how the fuck a child got into hell, but I digress. This pairs greatly with Angel Dust in the present, taking care of all of his friends and making sure they don't get into harm's way. Harm's way being Valve, who is in the same club, and like, I really enjoyed this episode. What the fuck? I was supposed to hate this show! I do have my problems with it though. Angel Dust's character development feels a little forced. People who are once in an abusive relationship aren't really that open to talking about it, if you didn't know. But here's Angel Dust just openly talking about, oh no, there's that bad guy, Valentino, who still owns my soul and owns power over me. I don't know why I'm talking about him like this. I would have liked it way more if like they saw Valentino in the bar and Angel Dust looked uncomfortable and exchanged a glance with Husk, visually saying to each other in that moment that they both know what's going on and can feel for each other. And outside of that, like, Adam won't stop swearing in every single sentence, and I assure you the comedy has not improved at all. There's this joke where Serpentius is trying to get with Cherry Bomb. He tries to buy her a drink, in which he panics and says he's buying everybody drinks. He tries to buy her a shot, in which he panics and says he's buying everybody shots. And then he tries to have sex with her, and then he panics and says he's having sex with everybody. Okay, cool. Classic rule of threes. What's the problem? Then a bunch of people drag him into a closet against his will. The joke is rape. Why aren't you laughing? It's not funny. It's really not funny despite its best efforts. Its swearing is still annoying. The swearing is still way over the top. The character designs still look bad. These new angel characters flat out look ugly with how gangly they are. Look at this dude at the gate. He has no nose. What happened to him? I still have every complaint I had from earlier, but something about this show just keeps pulling me back. Maybe it's because the actual story, looking past the writing, is pretty good. Or maybe it's Stockholm Syndrome. I don't know. I would still say I'm far from a Hazbin Hotel fan, but I can't say it doesn't have its best charms. Oh yeah, the music in this episode is really good. I love the second musical number, especially because it not only calls back to Adam's Hell's Forever song from earlier, but also through his showboating, he accidentally reveals to everybody the exterminations that keep happening. Keep in mind, nobody in heaven actually knew that stuff was going on, which creates amazing tension between the lead angel's daughter and her, because she's now pissed that human souls, regardless if they're in hell, have been getting massacred for pretty much no reason, which leads to an incredible duet between her and Charlie as they preach for demon rights. This show is like an onion, covered in mold and buried in my backyard. And on fire. It is so much wrong with it, but when you really start to peel through all those layers and actually being on fire, I can see something here. Something that was pretty poorly realized, but something nevertheless. Adam reveals to Charlie that Vaggie was once an angel who had slaughtered thousands of demons, is now a bunch of tension going throughout heaven, and the extinction is now in 1 month. I say we just finish up the story of the show since there's only 2 episodes left to talk about, and I'll talk more about the problems with it in the end. Episode 7, Hello Rosie. This episode stars Charlie and Alistair as they go seeking help from the residents of Cannibal Town to defend against the looming angel attack, while Vaggie goes to talk with Camille Carmichael from episode 3 about how she defeated an angel. And I think this would be a good spot to completely ignore what I said 4 sentences ago, and talk about something non-plot related. And that's Alistair. I brought him up in passing, but I actually want to focus on him for a minute, and why his character just doesn't work. Alistair is what the show calls the radio demon, which is expressed through his old scratchy radio voice, as well as running a radio show. I bragged on his design enough, but I thought that cane microphone thing was a good touch. What I don't think is a nice touch is everything else about him. His primary objective is to make deals in exchange for people's souls. The only reason that Husk is even here is because he is bound on soul contract by Alistair. So why doesn't he work? For starters, his voice. I get his whole gimmick is that he's the radio demon and all, but with how threatening the show tries to make him at every opportunity, his silly ass voice doesn't reflect that at all. As well as a lot of his deliveries not really landing, it just feels like a 15-year-old made this character, which is technically true because apparently our good friend Vivian made him back when she was in high school, and I can tell. His over-the-top edgy design as well as silly voice makes it come off as he's trying way too hard. I'm not going to make this claim because he was created back in 2008, but it really feels like this show wanted their very own Bill Cipher. You've heard of Bill Cipher, no doubt, over the last year. He's the main protagonist of the show Gravity Falls, and he is beloved by pretty much everybody who's seen it, but why? Why does Gravity Falls have a demon that makes deals and has ulterior motives to every action that works, and this show doesn't? And I think that boils down to their personalities, and how the shows treat them. In both Gravity Falls and Hazbin Hotel, they're treated by the world as serious figures who shouldn't be taken lightly. Like in this very episode when he makes a deal with Charlie in exchange for information. She wanted to know if there was a way they could kill angels, and since he knew a way, back from episode 3, they made a deal. She gets info and he gets a favor later, whatever that would be. Vaggie runs into the room terrified of whatever she just agreed to. Or earlier in the show, during episode 5, when Not Spinell was talking about Alistair's past running that radio show, that every time a big figure at Hell would go missing, a new voice would be added to the screams in the broadcast, pretty much implying that he had basically murdered all of them. And Gravity Falls basically has omens everywhere that you shouldn't trust Bill. The difference between the two of them, though, is that the world takes both of them seriously, but Bill Cipher doesn't. Every time he's on screen, he's constantly doing something wacky and entertaining with more cutthroat undertones. From his very introduction, he's already making fun of the person who had just summoned him. He calls little Gideon a living ventriloquist dummy as one of his first lines, then goes on to offer him deer teeth as a gift. Or for another example of when he gets introduced, even though this isn't technically in Gravity Falls, the show, in Disney's How Not to Draw Stan Pines when he shows up in the short, he immediately introduces himself as Mickey Mouse. He's taking none of this seriously, even though he has the power to back up being a monstrous kind of character. He just doesn't 90% of the time. That's what makes him fun. Any scene with Bill on screen is immediately cannibalized by his presence. He's just so entertaining. Bill Cipher also has a dumb little voice like Alistair, but I think it works much better for him because he's mostly being a Looney Tunes character. That's not to say he doesn't have his moments of being a genuine threat. Must I remind everybody of the I have some children I have to turn into corpses scene. But even when he's taking himself seriously like just then, it works because it's very rare when it happens. So it's a shock to the audience whenever he's suddenly serious. Alistair, on the other hand, is constantly taking himself seriously, and pair that up with a voice that doesn't fit him in the slightest, and a design that makes him look like he's trying far too hard, and it's just not an enjoyable experience whenever he's the focus of a scene. Like, I'm sorry, he just looks ugly. He always has a giant smile with yellow teeth that is nearly on the edges of his mouth that makes him look more silly than anything. So it just makes me kind of cringe whenever he does some shit like turning into a giant monster so he can kill a bunch of members of the Demon Mafia. It doesn't have the same impact as Bill Cipher for becoming a giant monster, because it's not something out of the ordinary. It's just, oh, he's doing his thing again. Or when he turns into a way too overdesigned Wendigo at the end of Vox's song, it looks fucking funny. It shoots for intimidating and scary, but flies right past it and loops back around to looking silly as hell. That's not the only time he's doing stuff that makes him look like something I would have made when I was 14. In episode 3, when Vaggie asks Alistair to get rid of the egg boys, he's in his room eating a deer carcass. Whoa, isn't that so cool? No? Well, how about him getting all glitchy every time he's on camera? Still no? This hood is not staying on. Here's another way Bill does everything he's trying to do better. Despite only having one eye to express himself, Bill is an extremely animated and alive feeling character. Throughout the show, he usually starts out episodes dedicated to him with lots of moxie, like he's got everything under control. During these parts, he's usually arrogant, cocky, won't stop blowing smoke up his own ass. But then when things don't go his way, you can see him express it in a ton of different ways, like him getting pissed and burning his colors, him becoming all weak and frail, and my personal favorite is the finale when, spoilers for a decade-old show, when he's finally being defeated for good, we get to see him panic and lose that control he thought he had. His body starts amalgamating and flipping out as he screams in agony, which is something that just never could happen with Alistair. He says that the reason he always smiles is so nobody knows what he's thinking, but it just works against his character more than anything. He literally doesn't emote. He's always talking in the same tone of voice with the same face, and it makes it impossible to feel attached to him. A good character should have the ability to make a wide array of emotions. They should have the ability to show them being happy, sad, shocked, angry, and any other emotion in the book. But he exclusively has one. The perfect place to put him breaking character and changing face would have been, skipping ahead a little bit right here, at the end of episode 8. He loses a fight and nearly dies, but neither his face or voice change at all. It feels like he's a robot. You know what does this better? Season 9 of Red vs. Blue. Yeah, sorry to draw another comparison to this, but you know I kinda like that show. In Red vs. Blue, every character wears a helmet since it's the universe of Halo, so they can hide the emotions of characters exceptionally well when you physically cannot see their face. But when they want to lift the veil and show the characters reacting to something, they take the helmets off. It works so well at accentuating any emotional scene when you can see the character's faces moving and have actual human expression, something Alistair never has. It would have been such a cool moment if Alistair got his shit kicked in after showboating the entire season and he drops the masquerade and shows fear. But no, he can't have that. If his mouth moves at all, we're gonna shoot the animators. And when I not only can't enjoy him on a visual level because he looks ugly, literally, who thought of the idea of having a red, brown, and yellow color palette? Or an emotional level because he doesn't have emotions, I can't become attached to a character, which leads me to not care about them. And because of that, I just don't care about Alistair. You know what? I don't like to use this word in a serious context, but Alistair is cringe. And it sucks because I can see a clear direction for his character to go in. Later in episode 7, when Charlie is singing to convince the Cannibal Town residents to help them fight against the Angels, this show is a musical, not really out of the ordinary, Alistair and the leader of their group start singing and dancing together. And like, where the hell was this silly bastard? If he acted as a silly father figure slash mentor throughout the show, I think he would have landed a lot better. But as it is, he's annoying. Vaggie's B-plot was pretty cool. Turns out the only thing that can hurt angels is angelic weapons, like that spear she carries around. This scene also has the second joke in the show that made me laugh. She asks Camilla how she knew she was an exorcist, in which she responds that she has a giant X over her eye and carries an angelic spear. Yeah, no shit, she's an angel. I don't know, I just thought that one was pretty funny. If I'm going to be honest, I have to take the comedic moments as they come, or I'll be stuck with the comedic moments about come. After both of them sing a nice little ditty, Vaggie gets the angelic steel they need for weapons, and Charlie gets the Cannibal Town residents to help them. And as they come back with all the stuff, they reunite. I like this scene a lot, because earlier, before Charlie's song to the cannibals, she was talking to the leader of their little bunch about the whole Vaggie being an angel thing, in which she hits her with the, hey, isn't your hotel's entire purpose about redeeming wayward souls? It's nice because she's forced to use her own mentality with her girlfriend, instead of just strangers she's meeting for the first time. It's a really cute way of pushing her beliefs to their limits and seeing if they still come out the same way. God, it's so hard to talk about this show because every time I find something I like, there's a billion other things I don't. I guess we'll just save that for a bit though, because we have the final episode to go. Episode 8, The Show Must Go On. Everybody's gearing up for the war against heaven, training all of the cannibals, getting some fancy weapons made, the works. This is also the second appearance of Vox in the entire show. Why even have this character then? What a fucking waste of space he turned out to be. His only contributing factor to the episode is just watching everything going on from a monitor from the safety of his tower. They set him up to where he's probably going to be a bigger threat in season 2 when that comes around, and if that's gonna be the case, then why'd you give him him 12 full minutes of intro during episode 2. That's half of an entire episode just wasted. Unlike my rant about Angel Dust near the start, Vox could have genuinely been taken out of the show and nothing would change. To celebrate how good his character is, I've decided I will not bring him up for the rest of this video. Heaven comes down and this entire episode is pretty much a fight scene. The cannibals, all of the main cast, and whoever else decided to show up, all stand their ground against the oncoming onslaught. A few angels get up close to the hotel in which they spring a trap Alistair made of having a giant bubble around the whole thing. They actually had a joke here I thought was pretty good. The right-hand man angel says there's a giant shield around the whole thing, in which Adam responds with a, yeah, no fucking shit. Him swearing there was actually pretty funny just because of how staggered he was while doing it. They use swearing to emphasize emotion, and I didn't even need to waste food to explain it this time. Adam decides he's bored and breaks the bubble though, in which him and Alistair get to have a showdown. This is it. The two most powerful beings in the show finally get to square up against each other. Alistair gets his ass kicked. They hype up Alistair throughout the whole thing as this huge threat everybody needs to live in fear of. If you get on his bad side, you're dead. And then he gets in one fight and nearly fucking dies. If they didn't have all this hype around him, honestly, this loss would be less hilarious. Well, Alistair's pretty much out, which leaves everybody else to pick up the slack, which they don't. Yeah, they're kind of getting bodied, and seeing all of this, Serpentius makes his decision. He sees Adam in the sky blasting everybody, so he gets in his ship from episode 2 with all of his egg boys and charges right at him. And I really wish I could play clips from this show, because not only could I show off some of those funnier moments from earlier better, but also so I can play this without any commentary because he immediately gets disintegrated. No fanfare or anything, it's hilarious. Congrats to the finale for having the 4th joke I laughed at. If we keep up this pace, it might just be unfunny instead of unbearable. Alright, let's move this along a bit. Charlie transforms into her goat thing from episode 1, gets beat up by Adam despite this. Lucifer comes in for the save, they kick his ass together. Adam gets stabbed to death by the maid from earlier I've only brought up once, and Heaven's sent packing. That is an incredibly abridged version of the events of this episode, but I don't really know how much of a fight scene I can really transcribe. Oh, well, she got punched here, and in this scene, he got punched real good. The hotel gets destroyed from the battle, in which they immediately build a new one because Lucifer can just do that. They sing a little song during their building montage. Serpentius gets sent to heaven, proving that damn souls can be redeemed, and we're done. I didn't mention everything, obviously. Like, I'm not even sure I said the name of that one person working for Valentino and the one who shall not be named. This scene where we get to see Charlie's mom setting up stuff for season 2, and probably plenty of stuff that wasn't really as important to the overall discussion as others. But at its core, that is the show. And after everything, can I really say I don't like this show anymore? There's so many points in this video where I praise it for the choices it makes, like the story and the writing being pretty good at times. I enjoyed the personalities and developments of a lot of characters. Charlie was a fun protagonist throughout the whole thing, and yeah, I didn't like a lot of the aspects like the character designs or frequent swearing. But is that really enough for me to justify not liking the show? Red vs. Blue is a show that has constant swearing, and I love that show to bits. Is it fair to say I don't like this one because of a similar problem? After everything, can I justifiably say I do not like Hazbin Hotel?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I don't like the show, but that doesn't mean I hate it. I can see something here. I think this show's biggest problem is realizing its potential, because despite my stigma and frequent complaints, I can't say in good faith I hate the show. The music is really good. Like, I've been listening to pretty much all of the tracks throughout the last 2 weeks of me making this video. The story they attempt and tell is great, and I did like a few of the characters, but I just can't look past its glaring issues. Seriously, I can't even look at this show because most of the characters are just ugly. Most of the character designs just plainly aren't good. Half of the cast is just unlikable. The humor it attempts to have barely lands. The excessive swearing just gets on my nerves. There are so many reasons to hate this show. Honestly, if there is any character I think is the biggest embodiment of how I feel about the show, it's Angel Dust. During the start, it just got on my nerves with nothing but sex jokes and swearing with every line of dialogue. But then at the halfway point after his dedicated episode, he kind of started to grow on me a bit, becoming a more likable character with an actual personality. I'm pretty sure from episode 4 onward, they barely make any sex jokes coming from him. His character undoubtedly reminds me of Tucker from Red vs. Blue. Early on in the show, he's just a pervert that does nothing but say pervert things, but as the seasons went on, he started to become a more refined character, with a real personality to call his own. And by the end, he was a respected leader who was still a little childish, but had grown. The difference between Tucker and Angel Dust, though, is that Tucker wasn't the only person making jokes. There was other characters he could bounce off of. But with Angel Dust in the first half of the show, he was the only comic relief. If Red vs. Blue only had Tucker telling jokes, it would be unbearable. The entire first half of the show is a slog to watch through because of how the humor is handled. But at the halfway mark, it tries to become something, and unfortunately, can't really be what it wants to be because of the first half. Should you watch Hazbin Hotel? No. Do I hate Hazbin Hotel? Also, no. Most of it is a directionless mess that really could have used some rewrites, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't at least interested to see how they could improve with the second season. But I know they won't. They've been rolling out shorts based off this show's sister series, Hell of a Boss, that has the exact same writing and humor from this show. That exact same humor and writing that I hated from the first half of this show. I know they won't improve. As long as shitty-ass Viz Pop remains in the writing room, it won't get better. But something inside of me still kind of wants to see the second season when it comes out. This show is like a toxic relationship, I swear. It has its problems, I didn't even like it, but I just can't help but swallow up its poison.